What got you interested in poker in the first place?
So what got me interested in poker in the first place is it was kind of simple, to be honest. I was playing games, I was just some kid playing games, and I was able to beat my friends at these games like chess, and then online video games, and like this game called Bubble Trouble, and then
Oh
this
yeah.
game called Command and Conquer or Minesweeper, things like that. And I became very good at them. And then along came poker, where it was this game where I could play it and make some money at it. So I thought, oh well, all right, now we're talking. And I had heard of this idea of a day job. I was kind of aloof as a kid, but one of the few things stuck with me is it sounded terrible to have like a day job work, 10 hours a day or whatever it is, 9 to 5, 8 hours a day doing something you hate. And I just wanted to be free and doing what I loved.
It still sounds terrible right now, I would say.
Oh yeah, it's even worse now. I think I've heard college students are kind of screwed, and it's a lot harder than it used to be. In fact, like jobs are getting harder and harder to get. I hear you have to be more and more qualified, kind of thing.
Is Command and Conquer like Age of Empires? Because I would play Age of Empires all the time.
I played that too. It's kind of like that, except now instead of fighting with warriors and guys on cavalry and trebuchets and cannons.
Yeah.
You're fighting with you drop like a Moab or someone, and there's like a group where it's like the terrorist group, and then it's the Chinese with the nukes and the
So it's
nuclear power
modern
tanks.
military.
It's like modern fantasy. It's not really
Okay.
modern. Like there's like an Air Force. There was an Air Force general, and then they had like these like fighter jets that would come around and fire a bunch of jets, and like helicopters with dudes fire rockets out of it. And all this stuff.
I mean, I have to look into that. Yeah, like my older brother and I were so into Age of Empires. If it's anything like that, I'm gonna love it. But I really like that concept too of like video games that escape, because a lot of those games too have like tons of strategy to them. Like they really require you to think, and that's what I loved about them too. Is like it is like chess. It's not just like go out there and like Call of Duty where you got to go just shoot everyone or whatever. I mean, you got to think during that too. But so it totally makes sense, that kind of natural progression into poker. You said you were like 17 when that happened?
Yeah,
like
roughly.
around then.
Yeah.
You still play video games today, or?
Very, very occasionally. I tried to, because like a video game and a real game, and well, whatever you want to call it, like something in life, are not really that different if you think about it. It's just the way that you get an emotional high just happens to work out in a different sort of way. It may be a bit more delayed. Like instead of like, I get you could like hypothetically make a game where you go to the gym and you click a button, you do like biceps and stuff like that, right? You can make a game like this, and there probably are games where you do something similar, like The Sims. But why not just play The Sims in real life? And now you've got like an actual house, and now you've got a career, and now you get the body and all of that. You know what I mean? So it's like at some point I slowly grew out of them, and I started basically like, trying to work myself into the real world, or like real world passions like took over. So I still play them a little bit, but I don't think it's really, the way I look at it is it's better and healthier to not spend too much time on them versus on other things. I think that's the right way to look at it. You could say people would go to a certain extreme or moralizing it, where they would say, oh, video games are bad. I think that's a little bit too black and white, where it's like an option, and there's healthier options that are better long term. I think that's a better view, and I'm just more preoccupied with that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. I use them as like an outlet, right? Like if it's after the workday and I'm stressed out or tired or whatever, I'll go play a game of FIFA online or something, and like,
totally.
It'll take me out of the world, and I'll just be, play a game or two and be good to go.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, yeah, I mean, like, why not have a little bit of fun, or like, just do something that's relaxing. Like, I did the exact same thing. If I lost like the big day of poker, I would like play video games to relax and take my mind off it. It worked great.
That was one of the first things. I never played them when I was, I mean, I did, but not very much when I was younger. And when I moved to LA, I was so inundated with work 24/7. It felt like all the time I was always around people, always on sets, everything. I just would turn on a video game, play for 5 minutes just to get my mind off everything just for a minute and like help me relax. So it was a nice little escape in that sense, and I still enjoy them from time to time today, but
Yeah.
but it's like you're saying, having a healthy balance and figuring out what that is for you is so important. And I think like as far as life goes, finding those balances in that way um, are what help you be more successful. Are there habits you would say you have that healthy habits that help you become a better poker player or as great of one as you are, or is it super far diving deep into just playing as much as possible, or what is it for you?
I think for almost everyone, the only let me think. I mean, you could say all this, eating healthy and all that stuff probably has some kind of effect, but not that much, I think. At least not for me. For other people it matters more. I think just depending on their physiology. But one thing I think really does help with absolutely everyone is something like meditation.
Mm.
Because it's like literal because in poker it's super important to be zen and not so much zen, but just not let the emotions affect your actions. That's and I mean being zen also helps. Like most very successful poker players are very
Yeah.
calm and don't get too stressed out about all this shit. They don't go like most of them don't. I mean, they can go. Yeah, a lot of them don't go super high and super low. I would say a lot of them are kind of stable, but there are exceptions for sure that are also really successful.
Hmm. Are you saying in the sense that for especially for people who don't play a lot of poker, if you're not as zen, you become more reactive and you're more likely to make a wrong decision that would cost you a lot? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, to be precise, there's two just two things going on. Yeah, basically, but it's important to note that if you can handle the emotion and still respond with it with equanimity, then it's fine. But it's easier if you don't have those like this wide range of emotional swings. These are actually two different things. And in fact, as it turns out in spirituality, I've read that you can in fact increase your emotional volatility. There's a practice in Zen that Zen specifically that I think opens yourself up to that. I was reading, it was really interesting because I was reading about this guy who like burned himself alive and didn't even flinch. I was like,
Yeah.
how's this even possible? It's like a miracle. And it turns out there's two different practices: one that closes off emotion, and one that does that, and then there's or like equalizes with it somehow. And there's one that can make you more how do you say have more volatility and more perception and have like a more dynamic experience.
Yeah, my buddy Robbie Masser in high school had the book The Tao of Pooh with like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Zen, like Taoism, like for dummies kind of, right? Just like a really simple way of understanding those principles.
Yeah.
So I kind of like got into that from him in that book and like learning about it a little bit in high school. It's pretty fascinating to me. It makes sense in poker that you'd have to be super on it. And
Yeah.
like, cause just for the audience, like we met through Justin Smith and had the pleasure of hanging and playing a friendly game of poker. Like I'm very emotional when I play anything really. So I get like super excited or like, I don't get like angry and sad or whatever, but like I just show excitement and celebrate when if I'm doing good.
Yeah.
So I definitely struggle with that. And I love hearing that, to be at that top level, you just have to have like incredible emotion control and like, you can't really emote because people can pick up on a tell, right? Like people would be like, oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Like if he's right, would that be one of the big things is like making sure you're not giving off a tell too?
Oh, that totally matters. To reiterate, like you can have a lot of emotional, you can show your emotions and or have that capacity to show them. It just requires some kind of control to be able to like discipline them to some extent. It's particularly when you're making plays, making bluffs or that kind of thing. But one thing I'll tell you is that it seems like a lot of the tells go away the more you actually play. That's my experience. And the more experienced the poker player is, and there's a bunch of different reasons for this, the more experienced the poker players are, usually the less tells that they have and the more like they've worked at it and that kind of thing. And everyone has like some tells, especially in the beginning. Like people, said I had tells and all this stuff. But yeah, of course it's important. But it matters more in the beginning, I would say. I mean, it's possible to pull off a full on act and like not give off tells and just do all this shit, but just have a whole talking game. Like some people have a bit of it. It's just kind of difficult just because it's easy to like mess with your head and think like, did they think that I had that? And did they do this because I had that? Like it's super easy to think something like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love seeing, in films too. I mean, James Bond, when they use the tells against the other, players.
Yeah.
There's some really fascinating stuff. And when we played too, I couldn't read You to Save My Life. I haven't had a ton of experience in poker. Right. And, but I knew Justin was really great. Morton's loves poker as well. We had a lot of fun playing with him. But I want to know, like, what is about you that you've discovered that sets you apart from most other poker players?
That's a good question. I think a big thing for me personally, I mean, one thing, I don't know if it sets me so much apart or not. Maybe people don't realize that they do this, but a big thing is I always believed in like what the truth was. And I just thought, well, if I really like focus on that and really honest with myself, and really like make sure like I'm not fooling myself with biases and things like that, it's just true that in poker that you'll win as long as the more honest you are with yourself and the more objective you are at figuring out where you're at and what you need to do and that kind of thing, and acting on it and like having the balls to do it, the more successful basically you'll be. That's a general thing, but I think one unique thing to me is I tend to be the type of person that I like kind of make assessments based off of my own experience of like what works best against the actual against like the whole population that I'm playing against, and then adjust. I like kind of make sort of reads on people like immediately, and then I keep adjusting them at quite fast depending on what information they give, just based on my experience, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can tell a little bit, but you can't really tell too much. It depends on things that people say, or depends on hands they show, like that kind of thing. But you have to like be very observant. Whereas a lot of people don't necessarily do it like that. They have their game, and they don't really adjust it too much.
Thank you for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And follow our socials at Studio 22 Podcast.